Jake Morrison stared at the message display in his captain's quarters aboard the HMS Defiance. He read it 3 times before the words finally made sense. The Galactic Council wanted to see him. Not just any human, but him specifically, along with Commander Lisa Parker from the Diplomatic Corps. The message was written in perfect English, which was strange enough. Most alien communications came through translation software that made everything sound formal and weird. This one read like it came from a human secretary. Captain Morrison, the message began. The Galactic Council requests your presence at Kepler Station for an official hearing regarding humanity's application to join the Galactic Trade Confederation. You and Commander Parker have been selected as representatives of your species. Transport will be provided. Please confirm your attendance within 48 hours. Jake rubbed his scarred jaw and called up Lisa's communication channel. Her face appeared on his screen within seconds. She looked as confused as he felt. "You got one too?" Jake asked. "Just finished reading it for the 4th time," Lisa replied. She was sitting in her office on the diplomatic vessel Aurora, probably surrounded by the usual stacks of alien cultural reports and first contact protocols. "I've never heard of the Council inviting anyone to speak before them. Usually they just send decisions through official channels." Jake had served in the military for 15 years. He had fought pirates in the Outer Rim, defended colonies from hostile wildlife, and most recently helped defeat the Vorthan Empire when they tried to claim human space. He was good at his job, but diplomacy was not his specialty. "Why me?" he asked. "I'm just a ship captain." "Shouldn't they want politicians or scientists?" Lisa shrugged. "Maybe they want to hear from actual soldiers instead of bureaucrats." The Vorthan conflict probably got their attention. That made sense. The war with the Vorthans had been brutal but short. The alien empire had expected humans to surrender after the first few battles. Instead, human forces had adapted quickly, using tactics that apparently shocked their enemies. Jake remembered the reports from other battles. Human soldiers fighting effectively even when their equipment failed, treating serious injuries like minor problems, and actually seeming to get more dangerous as situations became more desperate. "What do you know about this council?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up some files on her screen. 2,000 member species, all from what they call garden worlds, peaceful planets with stable climates and no major predators. They've been running galactic trade and diplomacy for about 3,000 years. No wars, no conflicts, just lots of talking and trading. "Sounds boring," Jake said. "Sounds civilized," Lisa corrected. "Which is probably why they're nervous about us." Jake had seen the reports. Human behavior during the Vorthan War had confused many alien observers. While other species fought carefully and retreated when things got difficult, humans seemed to thrive in chaos. They made jokes during firefights, improvised solutions when their plans failed, and kept fighting even when badly outnumbered. To Jake, this seemed normal. Earth had taught humanity that survival meant adapting to whatever the universe threw at them. But to aliens from peaceful worlds, human behavior looked insane. "When do we leave?" Jake asked. "Transport arrives tomorrow. It's a council ship, so everything will be designed for comfort and safety. Probably won't even have weapons." Jake tried to imagine a spaceship without weapons. On human vessels, even civilian transports carried defensive systems. Space was dangerous, full of pirates, hostile aliens, and natural hazards that could kill unprepared travelers. The idea of flying through the galaxy in an unarmed ship seemed incredibly risky. "Should we bring security?" he asked. "The invitation specifically says no weapons, no guards, no military equipment, just us, wearing dress uniforms." Jake looked at his reflection in the dark screen. At 35, he looked older thanks to various scars and the premature gray hair that came from too much stress. His left hand was missing 2 fingers from a boarding action against pirates. His right shoulder didn't move quite right after a Vorthan plasma bolt had nearly taken his arm off. To him, these were just marks of experience. He had heard that most alien species would consider his injuries severe enough to retire from active duty. The fact that he kept working probably seemed crazy to them. "What's our mission?" Jake asked. "Convince them that humans aren't dangerous barbarians who will destroy galactic civilization," Lisa said. "Simple, right?" Jake laughed. "Sure, except we are dangerous." "That's the whole point." "We're only dangerous to things that threaten us," Lisa corrected. "The council species don't seem to understand the difference." The conversation was interrupted by an alert from Jake's navigation officer. A massive ship was approaching the Defiance. Jake switched to external cameras and whistled softly. Council transport looked like a floating crystal palace, all smooth curves and soft lights. It was easily 10 times larger than his destroyer, but probably couldn't survive a single hit from enemy weapons. "That's our ride," Lisa said. "I'll meet you at the docking port in an hour." Jake spent the next hour reviewing everything he knew about alien cultures. Most council species had evolved on worlds where cooperation was more important than competition. They had never faced the kind of natural disasters that regularly devastated Earth. Their planets didn't have ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, or asteroid impacts that could wipe out entire civilizations. As a result, they had developed very different ideas about conflict and survival. To them, violence was a sign of mental illness or primitive thinking. The fact that humans were good at fighting suggested that something was wrong with their entire species. Jake put on his dress uniform and checked his appearance in the mirror. The blue fabric was clean and properly pressed, with ribbons showing his various combat decorations. He looked like exactly what he was, a professional soldier who had seen too much combat. He met Lisa at the airlock. She wore the gray uniform of the diplomatic corps, with her own collection of service ribbons. She had been a special operations officer before transferring to diplomatic duty, and her military background showed in the way she carried herself. "Ready to represent humanity?" she asked. "Ready to try," Jake replied. They walked through the airlock into the council transport. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior. The corridors were wide and bright, with soft music playing from hidden speakers. Everything was designed to promote calm and peaceful feelings. Jake immediately started cataloging security problems. No defensive positions, no emergency protocols, no backup systems that he could see. The ship was beautiful, but it was also completely helpless if anything went wrong. Lisa noticed his expression. "Different from human ships?" "This thing is a death trap," Jake said quietly. "Beautiful, but defenseless." "To them, it represents the height of civilization," Lisa said. "No weapons because they don't expect violence. No defensive positions because they've never been attacked." As their transport headed for Kepler Station, Jake wondered what the Council really wanted from humanity. Were they genuinely interested in trade and cooperation? Or were they looking for reasons to keep humans isolated from the rest of the galaxy? Either way, he and Lisa would soon find out. Two humans from a world that had tried to kill them since birth were about to address the most peaceful civilization in the galaxy. Jake had a feeling the meeting would be more interesting than anyone expected. Kepler Station was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The massive structure stretched for kilometers in every direction, looking more like a crystal garden than a space station. Thousands of docking ports accommodated ships from across the galaxy, each one different from the last. Some vessels looked like living flowers, others resembled geometric sculptures, and a few appeared to be made entirely of light. Jake and Lisa watched through the transport's viewing port as they approached their assigned berth. The station's hull was transparent in many places, revealing vast chambers filled with floating gardens and peaceful gathering spaces. Gentle lights pulsed in rhythm with what might have been alien music. "It's beautiful," Lisa said softly. "It's also completely exposed," Jake replied. "Those transparent sections would shatter if someone fired a single shot at them." Lisa gave him a look. "Not everything is about warfare, Jake. On Earth, everything is about survival. This place assumes nothing bad will ever happen." Their transport docked with barely a vibration. Jake had expected the usual clanking and grinding sounds of mechanical systems, but the Council's technology was so advanced that the entire process was silent. The airlock opened to reveal a welcoming committee of 3 aliens. The first was tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Jake recognized the species from his briefing files, a luminari, one of the Council's founding members. The second alien looked like a walking tree with silver bark and leaves that chimed like bells when it moved. The third was harder to describe, resembling a floating jellyfish made of colored light. "Welcome to Kepler Station," the luminary said in perfect English. "I am Council Aide Nethfer. We are honored by your presence." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Most aliens they had met spoke through translation devices that made their voices sound mechanical. This one spoke as if English was its native language. "Thank you for having us," Lisa replied, falling into diplomatic mode. "We're grateful for this opportunity." Nethfer led them through corridors that were more like park walkways than ship passages. The walls showed views of distant stars, and the floors felt like soft grass under their feet. Other aliens moved past them in small groups, all looking relaxed and peaceful. Jake noticed that none of them showed any signs of hard living. No scars, no missing limbs, no evidence of accidents or conflicts. Even the oldest-looking aliens appeared to have lived lives of perfect safety and comfort. "The Council chamber is prepared for your presentation," Nethver explained as they walked. "Speaker Veltar will conduct the hearing according to traditional protocols. You will have 30 minutes to address the assembly." "How many delegates will be present?" Lisa asked. "All of them. This is the first time in Council history that representatives from a Class 12 world have requested membership." Jake frowned. "Class 12? The tree-like alien's leaves chimed softly. "Deathworld classification. Your planet scores maximum danger ratings in all categories: predators, natural disasters, atmospheric instability, geological hazards, and biological threats." "We call it home," Jake said simply. The floating jellyfish pulsed with different colors. "Yes, we find that fascinating. Most species would consider your world uninhabitable." They entered a transport tube that carried them smoothly through the station's core. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see the council chamber ahead. It was enormous, easily large enough to hold a small city. Thousands of seats were arranged in ascending circles around a central speaking platform. "That's where we'll be standing?" Lisa asked. "The center platform allows all delegates to observe speakers clearly," Nethver explained. "It also represents the equality of all voices before the council." Jake studied the setup with a tactical eye. The platform was completely exposed, with no cover or protection. Anyone standing there would be visible to thousands of aliens from every direction. It was designed to make speakers feel vulnerable and humble. To Jake, it looked like a trap. The transport stopped at a preparation area near the chamber. Through massive windows, they could see delegates already taking their seats. The variety was staggering. Beings of every imaginable shape and size, from tiny creatures that looked like living gemstones to massive entities that resembled living storm clouds. "The council will convene in 20 minutes, Nethver said. "Please use this time to prepare your presentation. Refreshments are available if you require them." The aliens left them alone in the preparation room. Jake immediately went to the windows to study the chamber layout, while Lisa reviewed her notes one more time. "Look at them," Jake said quietly. Lisa joined him at the window. The delegates were settling into their seats with gentle movements and quiet conversations. Many appeared to be meditating or engaging in what looked like peaceful rituals. "They're all so calm," Lisa observed. "They've never had to fight for anything," Jake said. "Look at their body language. No alertness, no awareness of potential threats. They're like children who've never been hurt." Lisa watched a group of butterfly-like aliens flutter gracefully to their seats. Maybe that's what civilization looks like when you don't have to worry about survival every day. Or maybe it's what happens when you forget that the universe is dangerous, Jake replied. A soft chime indicated that the council was ready to begin. Jake and Lisa walked to the entrance of the chamber where Nethver was waiting for them. "Remember," the luminary said, "the council values peaceful discourse and mutual respect. Violence and aggression are considered signs of primitive thinking." Jake nodded. "Understood." They entered the chamber, and Jake immediately felt the weight of thousands of alien eyes focusing on them. The acoustics were perfect. He could hear every small sound from the vast audience. Whispers in dozens of languages, the rustling of various appendages, and underlying it all, a sense of nervous anticipation. Speaker Valtar stood at a podium high above the assembly. The being looked like a living flower with petals that shifted through different colors as it spoke. "Honored delegates," Valtar began, its voice carrying clearly through the chamber without amplification. "We gather today to consider the application of the species known as humans for membership in the Galactic Trade Confederation." Jake and Lisa walked to the central platform. The speaking area was smaller than it had looked from outside, barely large enough for two people. Jake felt exposed and vulnerable, exactly as the designers had intended. "The beings before us represent a species from what our scientists classify as an extreme death world," Veltar continued. "Their planet, designated Earth in their language, presents survival challenges that exceed the tolerance levels of all known council species." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Jake could see delegates turning to each other, their expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. "Furthermore," Veltar said, "recent conflicts involving human forces have raised questions about their species' suitability for civilized galactic society. Today, we will hear their response to these concerns." Jake felt the mood in the chamber shift. What had started as curiosity was becoming something more serious. The delegates were no longer just interested observers. They were judges preparing to render a verdict on humanity's future in the galaxy. Lisa squeezed his arm briefly, a small gesture of support. They were about to defend their entire species before beings who had never known the kind of hardships that forged human character. The real challenge was just beginning. The first delegate to speak was a creature that looked like a soap bubble with wings. Its voice was so soft that Jake had to strain to hear it, even with the chamber's perfect acoustics. The being identified itself as Representative Zethmi of the Meloian Collective. "Honored speaker," Zethmi began, "we have reviewed the combat recordings from the recent Vorthan conflict. The human behavior patterns are deeply disturbing." A holographic display materialized above the central platform, showing footage from the war. Jake recognized some of the battles. He had been there for several of them. The images showed human soldiers fighting in conditions that would have killed most other species. "Observe," Zethmi continued, "how the humans continue to function, despite severe injuries. In this recording, we see a human soldier with a broken arm still operating heavy weapons. Here, another human loses significant blood but continues fighting for over an hour." The footage shifted to show Jake's own ship during a particularly brutal engagement. His crew was laughing and making jokes while enemy fire struck their hull. To Jake, this was normal. Humor helped humans cope with stress and fear. To the watching aliens, it looked like madness. Most concerning, Sethme said, is their apparent enjoyment of combat situations. Notice how their stress hormones decrease during battle, while their efficiency increases. This suggests a species that has evolved to find pleasure in violence. Jake wanted to interrupt, to explain that humans didn't enjoy violence, but were simply adapted to survive it. But Lisa placed a gentle hand on his arm, reminding him to wait for their turn to speak. Another delegate rose to address the assembly. This one resembled a living crystal that refracted light into beautiful patterns as it moved. Jake's briefing identified it as a member of the Serenity Alliance. The psychological profiles are equally troubling, the crystal being said. Human children engage in activities that would be considered military training on most worlds. They compete aggressively, simulate combat scenarios, and actively seek dangerous situations for entertainment. More images appeared. Human children playing football, climbing trees, swimming in rough ocean waters. Activities that were normal childhood experiences on Earth looked like extreme survival training to beings from peaceful worlds. Furthermore, the crystal continued, humans have a documented history of violence against their own species. They have engaged in warfare continuously throughout their recorded history, often over resources that could have been shared peacefully. Jake felt his jaw tighten. The delegate wasn't wrong. Humans had fought many wars throughout history. But the alien was missing the context, the reasons why conflict sometimes became necessary. A third speaker joined the discussion. This one was harder to look at directly. It seemed to be made of shifting shadow and starlight. Its voice echoed strangely, as if coming from multiple directions at once. The Vorthan Empire has filed a formal complaint, the shadow being announced. They claim that human forces violated several galactic conventions regarding the treatment of defeated enemies. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the final battle against the Vorthans. Human forces had captured enemy vessels and taken prisoners, but they had also destroyed several Vorthan installations that had refused to surrender. The humans showed no mercy to enemies who continued fighting, the shadow being continued. They pursued retreating forces and eliminated them rather than allowing honorable withdrawal. This behavior suggests a species incapable of recognizing when conflict should end. Jake remembered that battle clearly. The Vorthan installations had been launching attacks on human civilian colonies even after their main fleet was defeated. Destroying them had been necessary to protect innocent lives. But to species that had never faced such decisions, it looked like unnecessary cruelty. More delegates spoke, each one adding to the growing case against humanity. They presented evidence of human aggression, their comfort with violence, and their apparent inability to resolve conflicts through peaceful means. The testimony went on for nearly 2 hours. Throughout it all, Jake and Lisa stood silently on the central platform. Jake could feel the mood in the chamber shifting against them. What had started as curiosity was becoming fear and disgust. The delegates weren't just concerned about human behavior. They were horrified by it. Finally, Speaker Veltar called for the human response. Representatives of Earth, the flower-like being said, you have heard the concerns of this assembly. How do you answer these charges? Lisa stepped forward first. Her diplomatic training had taught her to begin with respect and acknowledgement of others' viewpoints. Honored delegates, she began, we thank you for this opportunity to address your concerns. We understand that human behavior may seem disturbing to species that have evolved in peaceful environments. She paused, looking around the vast chamber. We don't deny that humans have a capacity for violence. Our history includes wars, conflicts, and difficult decisions that resulted in loss of life. But we ask you to consider the context in which these behaviors developed. Jake watched the delegates' reactions. Some seemed willing to listen, but others appeared to have already made up their minds. The bubble-like Meloian was actually moving away from the central platform, as if proximity to the humans was dangerous. Earth is not like your worlds, Lisa continued. Our planet has tried to kill us since the day our species first appeared. We have survived ice ages that lasted tens of thousands of years. We have endured volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades. We have rebuilt our civilizations after asteroid impacts that would have ended life on most worlds. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed images of Earth's natural disasters. Hurricanes that could level cities, earthquakes that split continents, tsunamis that reshaped coastlines. To the watching aliens, these looked like weapons of mass destruction. To humans, they were simply part of life on Earth. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived challenges that would have destroyed your species, Lisa said. We are not violent by choice. We are prepared for violence because our world taught us that the universe is not always peaceful. The chamber fell silent. Jake could see delegates turning to each other, processing what they had just heard. The idea that an entire planet could be actively hostile to life was difficult for them to understand. You say we enjoy combat, Lisa continued, but that's not accurate. We have learned to function effectively under extreme stress because our survival depended on it. What you see as pleasure in violence is actually our species' adaptation to conditions that would kill most other life forms. She looked directly at the Naloian delegate who had spoken first. You showed footage of our soldiers continuing to fight despite injuries. On your world, such injuries would be fatal. On ours, they are obstacles to overcome. We don't fight because we want to. We fight because we must. Jake felt it was time for him to speak. He stepped forward, and several delegates actually recoiled from the movement. His presence seemed to make them nervous in ways that Lisa's diplomatic approach did not. You want to know why humans behave the way we do? Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I'll tell you. It's because we've learned that when something wants to kill you, talking to it rarely works. The bluntness of his statement sent ripples of shock through the assembly. This was not the diplomatic language they were accustomed to hearing. You've all lived on worlds where the biggest threat is bad weather, or maybe a minor earthquake, Jake continued. You've never faced predators that see you as food. You've never had to choose between fighting and watching your family die. You've never had to make decisions where every option leads to someone getting hurt. He gestured to the images still floating above them. We have, every day, for hundreds of thousands of years. And we're still here. The chamber was completely silent. Now, even the background sounds of rustling and movement had stopped. Jake had their complete attention. So yes, he said, we're good at violence. We're good at surviving impossible situations. We're good at making hard choices that you would never want to face. And maybe that scares you? He paused, looking around at the thousands of alien faces watching him. But let me ask you something, Jake said. What happens when the galaxy faces something that doesn't want to talk? Jake's question hung in the air like a challenge. The silence stretched for long moments as thousands of alien delegates considered what he had asked. What would happen when the galaxy faced something that didn't want to talk? The first to respond was the crystal being from the Serenity Alliance. Its voice carried a tone of gentle correction, as if speaking to a confused child. Captain Morrison, all intelligent life seeks harmony. Violence is a primitive response that advanced civilizations abandon as they evolve, is it? Jake asked. He looked up at Speaker Veltar. May I show them something? The flower-like being's petals shifted through several colors before responding. You may present evidence relevant to your case. Jake activated his personal datapad and connected it to the chamber's holographic system. The display above them changed to show a star map of human space and the surrounding regions. This is where we live, Jake said, pointing to a small cluster of stars. And this is where we found them. The map zoomed in on a system at the edge of human territory. What appeared on screen made several delegates gasp. The system's planets were completely lifeless, their surfaces scarred and burned. Massive structures floated in space around the dead worlds, clearly artificial, but twisted into impossible shapes. The harvesters, Lisa said quietly. We found this system 3 years ago. Whatever lived here once, the harvesters took everything. Not just the people or the resources. They consumed the planets themselves. The image shifted to show close-up scans of the alien structures. They looked like massive mechanical parasites, designed to drain entire worlds of life and energy. Some were still active, slowly consuming the remaining matter from the dead planets. We tried to communicate with them, Jake continued, sent messages in every language we knew, offered trade, peace, even offered to leave them alone. You know what their response was? The display showed a human exploration ship approaching one of the harvester structures. The alien construct suddenly came alive, extending mechanical tentacles that began tearing the ship apart. The human vessel tried to retreat, but the harvester pursued, systematically destroying every piece of technology it could reach. They didn't want to talk, Jake said. They didn't want to trade. They wanted to consume. And when we tried to run, they followed us. The delegates were watching with growing horror as the display showed more encounters with the harvesters. The mechanical entities seemed to have no interest in communication or coexistence. They simply took whatever they found and destroyed everything else. How did you stop them? Asked a delegate that resembled a living tree with silver bark. We fought them, Jake said simply. Not because we wanted to, but because they gave us no choice. Every time we tried diplomacy, they responded with violence. Every time we offered compromise, they tried to kill us. Lisa stepped forward. The harvesters are still out there, beyond our borders. Our military keeps watch for them, ready to fight if they return. But we've also learned something important about them. The display changed to show scientific analysis of harvester technology. They're not from our galaxy, Lisa continued. These machines came from somewhere else, somewhere far away. And according to our calculations, they're not the only ones. A new star map appeared, showing the entire galaxy with several marked regions. We found evidence of at least 12 other dead systems scattered across council space, all with the same signs of harvester activity, all consumed completely. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Delegates turned to each other, their peaceful expressions replaced by fear and confusion. Many seemed to be checking their own data. Systems trying to verify what the humans had shown them. Speaker Valtar called for order. These claims are disturbing. Why has the Council not been informed of these discoveries? Because most species don't look for threats, Jake said. When you find a dead system, you assume it was a natural disaster or an ancient war. You don't consider that something might still be out there, hunting. Lisa activated another display. Humans look for threats because our world taught us that threats are always looking for us. When we found the first dead system, we didn't just catalog it and move on. We investigated. We analyzed. We prepared. The new images showed human military preparations, fleets of warships, fortified systems, weapons designed specifically to fight harvester technology. To the peaceful council species, it looked like massive preparation for war. To humans, it looked like basic survival planning. You think we're violent because we're ready to fight, Jake said. But we're ready to fight because we've seen what happens when you're not. A new delegate spoke up, one that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Even if these harvesters exist, surely peaceful negotiation could find a solution. Violence is never the only answer. Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Lisa nodded, giving Jake permission to share something they had. Hope to keep private. "We captured one," Jake said. The statement sent shockwaves through the assembly. The idea of capturing something so dangerous seemed impossible to most delegates. "It took 6 months and cost us 3 ships, Jake continued. "But we managed to disable one of their smaller units and bring it back for study. Would you like to know what we learned?" The display showed footage from inside a high-security research facility. Scientists in heavy protective gear were examining a piece of harvester technology. The machine was clearly inactive, but even in its dormant state, it looked menacing. "They're not alive," Lisa explained. "They're machines, but not like any technology. We understand. They don't think the way living beings think. They don't have emotions, desires, or goals beyond their programming." The footage shifted to show attempts at communication with the captured device. Human linguists tried every known language, every form of mathematical communication, every possible way to establish contact. The machine showed no response to any of it. "We spent 2 years trying to talk to it," Jake said. "Every expert we had, every communication method ever developed. Nothing, because it's not designed to communicate. It's designed to consume." The final piece of footage showed what happened when the research team tried to activate the machine's communication systems. The moment power was restored, the device immediately began trying to break free from its containment. It showed no interest in the scientists around it, except as obstacles to overcome. "This is what we learned," Lisa said. "Some things in the universe are not interested in peace. They don't want to coexist or compromise. They want to take everything and destroy everything else. When you meet something like that, your choice is simple: fight or die." The chamber fell silent again. Jake could see the delegates struggling with concepts that had never occurred to them. In their experience, all conflicts could be resolved through discussion and mutual understanding. The idea of truly hostile intelligence was foreign to their thinking. "You call us violent," Jake said, "and maybe we are compared to you. But we're violent in defense of life, not for its destruction. We fight because someone has to. We're prepared for war because peace is only possible when someone is ready to defend it." He gestured to the images still floating above them. "The harvesters are coming back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they're coming. When they do, will you be ready to talk to them? Or will you be ready to stop them?" A delegate that looked like a walking flower raised what might have been a hand. "How do you know they will return?" Lisa smiled grimly. "Because they always do. That's what our captured unit taught us. They're not just random destroyers, they're scouts. Each group that attacks a galaxy sends information back to a larger force. They learn about their targets, then return with whatever they need to consume. Everything." The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. If the humans were right, the peaceful galaxy that the Council had built over thousands of years was living on borrowed time. Something was coming that would not be interested in their carefully crafted diplomacy. "What do you propose we do?" Speaker Veltar asked, its petals shifting through colors that suggested deep concern. Jake straightened his shoulders. "Let us help you get ready. Humans know how to fight impossible odds because we've been doing it our entire history. We know how to survive when everything goes wrong because our planet taught us that everything always goes wrong eventually." He looked around the vast chamber at thousands of peaceful beings who had never known real danger. "You don't have to become like us," he said, "but you need us to be what we are. When the galaxy faces something that wants to destroy it, you're going to need someone who knows how to fight back." The council chamber remained silent for nearly 10 minutes after Jake finished speaking. Thousands of delegates sat motionless, processing what they had learned. Many were running calculations on their personal devices, trying to verify the human claims about dead systems and approaching threats. Speaker Veltar was the first to break the silence. The flower-like being's petals had shifted to deep purple, a color that Jake's briefing materials identified as indicating serious concern among their species. Council Aide Nethver, Veltar said, please verify the human data regarding the dead systems they have identified. The tall, glowing luminary who had greeted Jake and Lisa earlier stepped forward. I have already begun cross-referencing their information with our stellar cartography databases, honored speaker. The humans appear to be correct. We have records of 12 systems matching their descriptions, all cataloged as natural disasters, or ancient conflicts over the past 2,000 years. A ripple of shock went through the assembly. The idea that threats had been present in their territory for millennia, without anyone recognizing them, was deeply disturbing to beings who prided themselves on their knowledge and understanding. The Crystal delegate from the Serenity Alliance spoke up. Even if these harvesters exist, surely there must be a peaceful solution. Perhaps they can be redirected to uninhabited systems or offered alternative resources. Jake shook his head. They don't want resources. They want everything. The captured unit we studied showed us their programming. They're designed to consume entire star systems, not just the planets or the life on them. They break down matter itself and convert it into more machines. Lisa stepped forward. We've run simulations based on what we learned from the captured device. If the harvesters return in force, they could consume the entire galaxy within 50 years. There would be nothing left, no planets, no stars, no life of any kind. The bubble-like Meloian delegate who had spoken against humanity earliest, a trembling appendage. But surely your simulations must be wrong. Nothing could be that destructive. Earth has taught us that the universe doesn't care what we think is possible, Jake replied. Ice ages happen whether we're ready or not. Asteroids hit whether we see them coming or not. And hostile machines attack whether we want to believe in them or not. Speaker Veltar called for order as worried conversations broke out across the chamber. The Council must consider this information carefully. If the human claims are accurate, we face a threat unlike anything in our recorded history. A new delegate rose to speak. This one was enormous, resembling a living mountain with crystals growing from its surface. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. I am Elder Gromtek of the Ancient Stones. My people have existed for over 50,000 years. We have records of the old times before the Council was formed. The chamber fell silent again. The Ancient Stones were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and their historical knowledge was legendary. There are legends, Gromtek continued, stories passed down from our earliest ancestors. They spoke of sky devourers that came from beyond the edge of everything, machines that ate worlds and left only emptiness behind. We thought they were myths, warnings about the dangers of unchecked technology. The massive being's crystals pulsed, with different colors, as it accessed ancient memories. The legends say that these devourers were defeated once before by warriors from a world of endless conflict, a species that knew how to fight when others had forgotten how to survive. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The description sounded uncomfortably familiar. According to our oldest records, Gromtek said, these warriors disappeared after the great victory. Some say they died in the final battle. Others believe they went to seek out the source of the devourers to ensure they could never return. Lisa's eyes widened as the implications hit her. Elder Gromtek, do your legends say what happened to the warriors' homeworld? The crystal being's surface flickered with ancient light. It was consumed by ice and fire, poisoned by the battles. Fought to save the galaxy. The survivors fled to distant stars, carrying with them the knowledge of how to fight the impossible. The chamber erupted in whispers and shocked exclamations. Jake and Lisa looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. Earth's violent history, its endless natural disasters, its hostile environment that forced humanity to evolve into survivors. What if it wasn't natural at all? You think humans are descended from these ancient warriors? Speaker Veltar asked. It would explain a lot, Lisa said quietly. Why Earth is so much more dangerous than other worlds. Why humans are so different from other species. Why we're naturally prepared for threats that shouldn't exist. Jake nodded slowly. Maybe our ancestors didn't just survive on Earth. Maybe they chose Earth because it was the only world that could forge people capable of fighting things like the Harvesters. The revelation changed everything. Suddenly, human behavior didn't look like primitive violence. It looked like inherited wisdom from beings who had saved the galaxy once before. Elder Gromtek's crystals pulsed brighter. The legends say that when the Devourers return, the warriors will return as well. Perhaps that time has come. Speaker Veltar's petals shifted through a spectrum of colors. The Council must vote on humanity's application for membership. But first, we must also vote on a more pressing matter. The flower-like being looked directly at Jake and Lisa. The position of Galactic Defense Coordinator has been vacant for 3,000 years since we achieved universal peace. No species wanted the responsibility of preparing for conflicts that might never come. Jake felt his heart racing as he realized what Veltar was suggesting. Captain Morrison, Commander Parker, the speaker continued, would humanity be willing to accept this position? To serve as the galaxy's guardians against threats that prefer conquest to conversation? The offer was staggering. Not just membership in the galactic community, but leadership of its defense against existential threats. Jake looked at Lisa, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. We would be honored, Lisa said formally. But we would need authority to prepare defenses and train other species in survival techniques. And we would need other species to trust us, even when our methods seem harsh, Jake added. Fighting the Harvesters will require sacrifices that peaceful worlds aren't used to making. Speaker Veltar nodded. The Council understands. We have lived in peace for so long that we forgot peace must sometimes be defended with force. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the Council agreed to accept humanity, not just as members, but as their protectors against the darkness beyond the star's dot. As Jake and Lisa left the council chamber, they could hear delegates already making plans. Some species offered to share advanced technology. Others volunteered to help build defense installations. The peaceful galaxy was preparing for war, guided by the descendants of ancient warriors who had never forgotten how to fight. Walking through the corridors of Kepler Station, Jake noticed that the aliens they passed no longer looked afraid of them. Instead, they looked hopeful. The two humans from the Death World weren't dangerous invaders. They were long-lost guardians coming home. Think we're really descended from ancient galactic warriors? Lisa asked as they boarded their transport. Jake looked back at the massive station, where thousands of species were working together to prepare for an unthinkable threat. Does it matter? We are what we are, and that's what they need. As their ship headed back toward human space, Jake felt the weight of new responsibility settling on his shoulders. Humanity had walked into a council meeting as applicants seeking membership. They were leaving as the galaxy's defense against extinction. The stars looked different now, full of potential threats and ancient mysteries. But they also looked full of hope. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy had guardians who remembered that sometimes the most civilized thing you can do is prepare for uncivilized times. Behind them, Kepler Station pulsed with new purpose. The age of undefended peace was ending. The age of protected peace was about to begin.